top of the hour, and hello everyone who's just joined us, and welcome to today's webinar, How to Knock 20 Seconds Off Your Average Handling Time. I'm Rachel, I'll be your webinar chairperson for today. Delighted to be joined by two brilliant speakers. We've got Paul Wield. Well, we've called you a contact centre innovator. I don't know whether you want to share a bit about that.
It's interesting. I mean, I have 20 plus years experience in the industry. There isn't much that I haven't seen and sort of come across before. I am very interested in areas of development, of improvement, of innovation. It's something that I've got involved, been lucky enough to get involved with some startup businesses over the past few years. You know, it's absolutely fascinating within our industry to find new ways of sort of doing things. So that's my, if you like, specialist subject if this was mastermind. But today we're getting back to sort of operational science basics, which is basically how do you manage calls, which is, you know, the absolutely the kind of core activity that the audience need to be able to do sort of day in, day out.
Right.
Brilliant. Well, delighted to have you on board, and delighted to welcome Mike Murphy from Genesis. Welcome to today's webinar.
Thanks, Rachel. Hi, everybody. Great to be here.
And you're going to be sharing the technology angle later on.
I am. I've got a similar tenure, if you like, in the space as Paul. I really love this subject. I think it's kind of one of those things. I think Paul said like the basic science of running an effective contact center, and I think it absolutely is. But it's so easy to kind of low prioritize it when actually it should be really a high priority. So I think it's important that we get the strategy, if you like, around keeping always paranoid about the handling time and what can I do just to make things a little bit better. I just love this subject, so I'm looking forward to it.
Brilliant. Well, great to have you on board as well. Just to let everyone know, we are taking a recording of today's webinar, and that will be available later on this afternoon on callcenterhelper.com/recorded-webinars. So great opportunity to share it with your team later on. There is a great discussion already happening. We've got over 29 people in the chat room already. You can find it on callcenterhelper.com/chat. You just need to put your first name, last name and email address in. It is in a separate window, but a lot of us now have these really wide screens, so hopefully you can get them on the same time to join in. One of the added bonuses is that you can download the slides today. There's a lot of information being shared, so that's a great opportunity to download them here and download the chat log later on. Also an added bonus is we are doing our usual champagne or chocolates for the best tip. I'm not allowed to take home the champagne, so you'll just have to imagine what it is. And we can't keep chocolates in the office, so yeah. Especially not after Christmas. Great chance to, we'll start today with a poll, which is, I've covered it up now by trying to launch it. In 2018, did your average handling time go up or down in your contact centre? So let me just launch the poll. So Paul, what are your thoughts on on the poll?
Well, I would certainly think that a number of people are coming to the webinar today because they've realised that AHT is something which is challenging them. So I suspect we'll see more people saying that it's gone up last year than any of the other answers.
Yep. Mike, would you agree with that?
So sadly, I would. I mean, I mentioned earlier, I think there's a lot of movement, if you will, of contacts from voice to digital, and those digital ones that can be easily handled kind of make sense. But I find that always leaves the call handling to the more complex stuff. So I think that might be a factor in driving up the handling times. So I'd expect it to have gone up.
There we go. So sharing the results, 66% have gone up, 17% have gone down, and 17% have stayed the same. So well done to our two panelists. Already ahead of the game. So delighted to hand over now to our first speaker. So I'm going to hand over the baton to you, Paul.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, so let's just bring up the presentation. So essentially what I'm going to cover for you over the next 15 or so minutes are the basic underlying operational science that makes up average handle time, and then get into some hints and tips about what you can do to hopefully bring that down, and also give you some confidence that if you were tasked by your manager to take 20 seconds off average handling time within a period, that's something that hopefully you can take away from today and be able to actually achieve in sort of 2019. Just in terms of the kind of fundamentals, we talk about AHT as if it's a thing. It's actually got three elements, and it's important to recognize that they have different approaches about how you improve them. So those three things are actually the talk time. So that's the conversation time between a customer and an agent. So it comes after any IVR or automation that has happened in the customer journey. So it's the physical time between a customer and an agent having that conversation. Hold time is the point at which the call is put on hold. That might be because the agent needs to go away and find some more information or access systems. It might be because it's part of a handoff, so a call transfer process. And the third element is wrap time. That happens at the end of the call. So at this point, the conversation between the customer and the agent has finished, but the agent still needs to do some after call work before they're then ready to go available for the next call. The good news is that your modern telephony ACD systems will absolutely be able to measure average handle time. They will also be able to break it down into its constituent components. And so you will be able to draw metrics on an agent level, on a team level, and on a center level, and also across the different lines of business. So if you've got call routing that separate out different call types, then you can look at the average handle time between those different call types. Why is it important? Well, your workforce planning people, your resource management team, absolutely use AHT as a kind of fundamental capacity unit. So they kind of calculate how many staff you need based on the number of calls that are forecast, multiplied by the average handle time. So it is a fundamental planning and forecasting component. Where it gets slightly more tricky is that although you have a desire to reduce AHT, just having a conversation with an agent, a team leader having a conversation with an agent that says, I want you to reduce your AHT, is actually the wrong end of the telescope to look at. The right focus to have is actually what are the underlying drivers, the underlying causes of talk time increasing or hold time increasing, and so forth. So what you've actually got to do is to have conversations with agents that actually are around understanding why it is that they need to actually hand off a call. Now that might be the root cause might be with your call routing strategy. It might be that the customers put the wrong information in to the IVR or called the wrong number, or it might be that a call has actually overflowed to a different skill group. So it's reducing handoffs that are potentially one of the ways in which you can reduce the hold element of AHT. Likewise with RAP, it is necessary for agents to complete case notes and codify calls, etc. at the end of a call. But often they aren't aware of the fact that they've potentially got some behaviours around trying to eke that time out, because it just gives them a bit more rest time before taking the next call. Well, what I've found in the past is that if you wrap up some incentives for your agents and you have a qualifying factor that says, wrap time needs to be below a certain target over a cumulative month, then funnily enough, in the last week of the month, it's very surprising, or it's not unsurprising, sorry, to say that that agent performance increases. And it increases so that the threshold for being eligible for incentive is actually met. There's also a role to play for your quality team. Certainly one of the techniques that I've used in the past is get the quality team to look at very long calls and really look at it not from perspective about saying, is that bad, but actually to say, what is it that's in the nature of that conversation between a customer and an agent, and does that add value? And if it does, that's a good thing, and you accept that that's part of the kind of distribution mix. If not, then potentially you're identifying some agents that have some development needs. So there's a number of ways in which you can have conversations between team leaders and agents, where the outcome of which will be you'll actually decrease AHT. In terms of how you understand the performance spread, just bear with me a second. Yeah, sorry about that. In terms of how you understand the performance spread, then what you a quantitative technique that you can use is called quartile analysis. And what that does is, if you've got a contact center with, say, 100 agents, nice round number to keep the math simple, then what you basically do is you rank those agents, or you take the MI for them, and you put them in a list from 1 to 100, and then you divide them into 4 equally sized groups. So agents 1 to 25 would be your sort of top quartile if they're the ones with the sort of best performance, and then 26 to 50 is quartile 2, and so forth. And you can basically do that across any of the KPIs that you've got the underlying agent level data. So AHT will be one of those metrics. There may also be outcome metrics that you've got. So I'm thinking there of things like conversion rates or average order value. If you've got a sales center, it might be first contact resolution in terms of a service center. So you can basically split up your agent population into those quartiles. And then if you look at the averages within the specific quartile, what you'll see is almost certainly a far greater range of performance than you would otherwise have imagined. And what that does do is that starts to be quite insightful, because instead of looking at AHT across a particular call type for all the agents and say it's a unique number, what you actually see is it's a spread of performance across the quartiles. And what you can then do is start to identify how you might replicate the behaviours of your top quartile group, what it is that they're doing so well, and start to cascade that across to other team members. And if we look at a specific example, so this was a service operation. The AHT across all of the agents was 320 seconds, so just over 5 minutes. But when we actually started to look at the performance within the groupings, what we saw was this tremendous spread between quartile 1 and quartile 4. So quartile 1 was 215 seconds, and that was 150 seconds less than the fourth quartile of sort of agent performers. And what we could then do is we could quantitatively say that every 5% improvement within the quartile would yield a 10-second saving, and that will be a sort of capacity release. So instead of having a generic conversation about saying how do you as an individual compare to 320 seconds as the average of the averages, you started to have a conversation that went along the lines of, you're currently in this quartile, let's actually listen to some calls and see what it is that you're doing well and sort of otherwise. And actually you have very different coaching approaches. Certainly those that are in quartile 1 absolutely want to understand what it is that they're doing so well. Perhaps also just double check against the quality scores that they're not taking shortcuts. But assuming that that's not the case and that they are positive, then what else can you learn from that you can then cascade elsewhere? Likewise, if you have a conversation with someone in quartile 4, the fact that they're some way off the true average, which is 320, actually it's far more achievable for them to make demonstrable improvements that shave 10, 15 seconds off here and there, and they actually then get a kind of positive reinforcement of the fact that they're actually developing and sort of doing better. So from a numeric perspective, as soon as you start saving lots of 10 seconds in each of the quartiles, guess what happens? Your workforce management team suddenly see the overall number, the 320 number, coming down quite significantly. So this is a way of really being able to understand what is it that you should be doing to get at the kind of root cause of the particular issue. And the types of things that you can develop through coaching, just going back to those 3 elements. So from talk time, then it could be something about call control techniques. How is it that the agent at the front of the call, once they've introduced themselves and you've been through any ID&V process that you need to do, how is it that they use a question and answer technique to get to understand the particular issue that the customer has, and how do they then find a resolution, and how do they communicate that resolution and come up with a confirmation that the issue is resolved. There's quite a bit of training and coaching materials that you'll have available. Some agents will be brilliant at it, others will need some development support, and those are the things that your team leaders and your coaches can help with. With hold time, then it's the root causes of why a customer needs to go on hold. This could be something that's prevalent amongst some of your newer agents, so lower tenure, perhaps still got some development needs. They need to refer to information, whether that's knowledge bases or from colleagues. And again, that population, once you've identified who they are, then you start to develop coaching techniques to sort of assist them to do some offline training to be able to address the kind of gaps that they've actually got. And likewise with wrap time, I mentioned earlier you can do some incentives, but actually those people that have got really short wrap time, there'll be some things that they're doing that others aren't. That might be that they're much more skilled and proficient at being able to capture information on the case system, the CRM system, whilst the call's in progress. It might just be the fact that they're actually niftier at knowing their way around the system, and they know how to use the shortcuts. So again, there'll be learnings there that the best agents will be able to sort of share with others. And Rachel, if I hand back to you, I thought we wanted to get the audience involved at this point.
Yeah, so we're wanting to find out if you've had any ideas or you've trialled anything for reducing talk time, hold time and wrap time. If you put your answers in the chat room, callcenterhelper.com/chat, a lot of you are already there. But yes, we'll come back to that in a minute. We are asking a poll, which is what have you done to reduce your contact center's average handling time? Have you coached new call control techniques? Have you analysed calls with low HT and shared best practice? Have you improved call routing, improved your ID and verification processes, or have you implemented screen pops? I'm going to share the poll now. Mike, what sort of things do you think people have tried?
Yeah, so from a sort of a technology side of things, if you will, I'll be curious to understand how many people have successfully implemented screen pops. I'm really interested in that, and kind of the same with ID&V, because if we can get those smartly deployed, if you like used correctly, they can absolutely impact AHT quite dramatically. So for me, they'll be the ones I'm very interested to understand how they score.
Well, I will just a few more, and I'll close and share the results. Sample size of 195 people. So you can see that 55% have analysed calls with, Yep, I have shared it. Calls with low AHT and shared best practice. 45% have improved call routing. 40% have coached new call control techniques. 35% have improved call, ID and verification processes, with 20% implementing screen pops. Is that a good spread for you, Mike?
Well, I kind of, my gut feeling was sort of steering that way. So in a way, it's nicely validated that thinking. For a long time, we've had these capabilities to allow us to bring sort of like a smarter, slicker ways of doing ID&V and screen pops, and there we are, the two poorest performing sectors. So yeah, work to do, everybody.
Opportunity, Mike. Opportunity knocks. Yeah.
Absolutely. My number.
So we'll come back to your ideas, sorry, but we'll just get some more information from Paul. So I'll make you the presenter again.
Okay, yeah, just a couple of examples for me to finish on. The first example was from a service operation. So this was an engineering company where customers had problems with units in their premises, and they called up the service operation basically to schedule a field engineer visit. And as you can probably imagine, the quite high costs associated with actually sending a service engineer to site. And so therefore one of the remits of the service operation was to have a dialogue that would see if the user could actually solve the issue for themselves. That not only saved cost for the service operation, but was actually positive from a customer satisfaction perspective, because it meant that the issue that they were ringing up to report, they could solve there and then. So a definite positive. And they were interested in knowing how individual agents performed against that first line fix metric, and also to compare that against the service time. And so they had a target of 15% first line fix within a 7-minute call. And so what we started to do was to plot on a 2x2 matrix the first line fix that an agent had against their average handle time. And what we found was really interesting from a perspective of, it was kind of okay to be in the bottom quartile. So in the diagram, that's in the bottom left. So these are agents who haven't yet achieved a 15% service fix metric and are taking quite a long time to get there. And what we discovered was that these were very much the newest agents in the team. And through development and coaching, they very quickly got to a place where their first line fix metric improved through knowledge and experience. And then we started to look at what the real top performers were doing. So that's the kind of top right in this particular diagram. So these are the people who've got the highest first line fix in the shortest amount of time. So the scale at the bottom is slightly inverted from what you might normally see. So those are the people that are your kind of your sort of top performers. And in having this understanding about the fact that there was a range of performers and that was entirely natural, it gave a real focus point for the performance management of this particular team. And also when they did look to do things like multi-skilling and bring in new team members, they could actually get to a place where they understood what the impact on performance, and they could predict it in advance. So they began to be able to chart how long it took for a new agent to become fully kind of competent, and they could build that into their kind of planning assumptions. So a really simple approach at one level, but incredibly powerful in terms of its predictive nature, in terms of productivity and operational performance. The second example is from an airline, and I worked with them for over a year in an interim position. And the problem they had at the start of the year, so this is a bit of a busy graph, but it goes from January at the left-hand end to December at the right. And the problem they had at the beginning of the year was a very high level of abandonment calls. And what we did over the first 6 months is put in place a number of remedial issues to try and solve that. And that was basically an imbalance between supply and demand. So we needed to get more agents on board. But what we also did was we looked at the spread of performance across those agents. And in the middle part of the year, we started to apply things like quartile analysis, and we really got to understand what was happening with sort of AHT. And what you can see as you get to the last quarter of the year, so the boxes where are the ticks, is the gap. So this is the spread of performance between the red dashes and the green dashes on a monthly basis. What you can see is that narrows very significantly. So that was where we were applying all of these techniques, and we were getting a much more focused level of performance. And what also happened around about the end of September was we absolutely got the abandonment call rate under control. So we were suddenly performing at better than the 95% answer rate. And there was a very subtle nuance here, which is that in the early part of the year, when we weren't achieving that answer rate, what was happening in the call routing was the airline had two different agent types. It had a service agent and a sales agent. So in other words, if you had an existing booking, that was regarded as a service call. If you were making a new booking, it was a sales call. And what we managed to empirically prove from the data was that if a service call ended up with a service agent, that was a significantly lower handle time than if a service call overflowed to a sales agent. And that used to happen, that overflow used to happen after 60 seconds. So if a customer had been waiting for more than a minute, effectively the call routing then started looking across multiple skill types. So you ended up with a higher proportion of service calls with ending up at sales agents. And the best will in the world, those sales agents had a higher handle time for that call type. And the opposite was true, which was that sales calls that ended up with sales agents had a higher conversion rate than a sales call going to a service agent. So we had a kind of double whammy of good news once the handle time, once the abandonment call rate came down, was that the handle time was also reduced. Where we got to in the last quarter of the year was 100 seconds worth of improvement. And that quarterly performance, it was something that was maintained all of the following year. And so this is, it's entirely possible that you can find ways to reduce average handle time. And although, as you said in your poll just a few moments ago, a lot of the things you're doing are operational, that's actually really important. What Mike will talk about in a moment are the technology. They can give you a boost in terms of your operational performance, but it's the operational techniques that actually keep it sustained. Rachel, back to you.
Brilliant. Well, the title was 20 seconds, but reduced it by 100 seconds. So yes, hopefully we can all hope for that. So handing over, we've got our top tips and questions. The chat room is flying through, so let's see what's been being said. So Paul said, we also look at quartile 1 in Paul's model to understand if they're good results is not a bad behaviour, i.e. short calls as hanging off. Paul, I think you mentioned that. So Brienne said, we've worked at reducing wrap time by routing tasks that take longer times to designated teams to work them more efficiently, and limited hold times by making FCR a priority. Paul, what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of factors going on here. So yeah, if you fundamentally want to be able to help a customer to resolve their issue in a single call, then it isn't cheating to put the customer on hold because you as an individual agent can't solve it and then transfer that call to a colleague who can. That's actually a good outcome for the customer. However, it will show up in terms of the average handle time. It'll show up as being probably 2 calls in the MI. So again, we shouldn't get out of context in terms of there may be other objectives in the contact center that are kind of counter to what we're talking about today.
Yep. So Barry said you can reduce wrap time by entering abbreviations for advisors doing after-call work, i.e. customer equals cust. Mike, is that something that you're able to do with technology and things like that?
It can be. There's often like drop-down wrap tools, if you will. They can also be then like set specific to the kind of type of call coming through. So the drop down or the wrap sort of like drop downs would be specific, shall we say, to sales queue versus the wrap drop down for a service queue would be entirely different. And you can also then have several levels, if you like, of drop down. So you can make it quite a slick and quick process to just sort of pick and kind of move on. So yeah, I mean, there are tools there, but it's kind of, like I was sort of saying earlier, it's one of those things that you just got to keep polishing, and don't let them become, if you like, stale. And also, if you like, if people have great ideas but adding more, often you end up with lots and lots and lots of wrap options, and suddenly that becomes unworkable, and your drop down becomes, I've got a list of 16, and you've lost the point. So just be careful about things like that creeping in over time.
Yeah, I was going to say, kind of when you're talking about levels, it's almost quick to just write cust, but you'd have to weigh up those time frames. So Andrew said, I have looked at high AHT along with high percentage silence using the speech analytics platform. Leaf says, we've been looking into transfer calls from the individual agent as a tell if there's a lack of confidence in their own ability or competencies. And we've had a tip in from Mike who says, we, the quality team, evaluate long AHT calls and look for ways to improve, be it process improvements or call handling skills. These were shared with management down to the agents in multiple ways, including QA tips of the week and coaching feedback for the supervisors. Paul, what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, no, that's entirely best practice. Nice one, Mike. That's the role of the quality team, adding sort of value.
Yep.
So Amber's asked a question. Does anyone compare AHT with customer satisfaction scores? So Paul, I don't know what your thoughts are on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think as one of the examples I gave earlier is that if you take AHT as an efficiency measure and you look at it alongside some sort of outcome measure, and as Amber is saying, that could be customer satisfaction. So yes, if you're fortunate enough to be able to survey customers after the interaction, you do that through some sort of voice of the customer survey tool, then you have a perfect pivot to be able to look at the agent metrics alongside the customer feedback. And again, that could well give you a very interesting sort of 2x2 matrix.
Brilliant. So we've got a few more tips. So Mike's going for the champagne, said we made huge wrap time savings by simply reverting from agents determining how much time they needed to auto-set it around the average point, and then ironing out any issues, mainly those who had generally tried to do too much. There were very few and instantly gained significant capacity. So we've had a question from Brienne saying, when you link incentives to individual agent achievements for wrap targets, what sort of measures are you using and what incentives? Mike, I don't know whether you could answer this one.
Or could that be Paul?
Okay.
Yeah, I think I raised it. So this was my airline project. So we were very fortunate that we had lots of local suppliers that gave what essentially were freebies, and we could use them as sort of prizes. And therefore, what we did was allow agents to enter effectively a prize draw, and in order to get a ticket to the prize draw, what you then had to achieve was a certain level of performance, and we used to vary the performance metric that we were looking at on a monthly basis, and we used AHT and specifically wrap time at one of those months. And what was fascinating was that we had a very high level of compliance that month to achieving the wrap target. But what we found was that the wrap level stayed at that level for subsequent months. So basically it became a learned behavior. So really there are some great ways to use incentives to be able not just to reward the very top performers, but basically do it in a way that is much more collegiate and embracing, and a prize draw whereby in order to get a ticket, you have to achieve a certain level of performance that's suitable for everyone to achieve. What that means is that if you've got 200 agents in the contact center. If you get 150 or 180 agents getting a prize draw ticket, that's fantastic. It still might be you've only got 5 prizes, but the point is everyone feels like they've earned the sort of rights to sort of be in the draw, and that's the behavioural science.
Thank you. From an incentive point of view, we've got lots of articles on, what sort of incentives. I'm sure Charlie in the chat room will be able to post that. And also, it doesn't have to be a physical item. It can be, leaving work early, coming in late, or even a duvet day. It isn't all about winning, a bottle of wine or an actual physical item as well. So I think it's a great opportunity to hand over to Mike for your presentation. So I'll just make you the presenter.
Thank you, Rachel. Just making my screen large. So can you confirm that's coming across okay?
Oh, yep. I was just going to say we saw your emails.
Okay, very good. Oh, not very good. Not really, because I'm sure I switched it off. Sorry. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mike from Genesis, and like I said earlier, I do like this subject because I do feel that it's a subject which can drift, I think is a way to describe it. And because there is always lots of change in the contact center, often you just kind of lose sight, if you will, of the importance of average handle time. So to that end, I love Paul's use cases there, and how by being able to scrutinize and drill in, you can actually extract some terrific benefits. So that's really pleasing. And those operational sort of use cases, I think, are great to share. And like I say, I kind of think of this with a little bit of paranoia to think, is there anything else I can do today to make it better? And having that question ever present in my mind, I think, is a useful way to just look at it. So my section, if you like, has got 2 elements to it, really. So one is I've got a kind of an overview of the tools that would be typically used to bring what Paul's ideas expressed to life. So that's kind of like the first part, if you will, of my deck. And then the second thing I wanted to introduce then was the ideas, if you will, that are sort of coming through in the very, very near pipeline. And by very, very, I mean like in the next couple of months. So there's some very interesting, so if you will, like new technical capabilities that I think just sharing those will kind of help you think about average handle time differently as we kind of go forward into the year. So if we just sort of summarize the position that we have here at Genesis, we have 3 offerings for our customers, and each offering, if you will, has got its strengths. Depending upon the customer's particular circumstance, myself and my colleagues will assess the best fit solution for that customer, and then we kind of go forward with a proposal. But if we kind of take a look at Pure Cloud, which is just a nice, if you like, modern application, this slide here, if you will, nicely summarizes its capability. And the reason I want to do this is because we've had the opportunity through technology enhancements to basically go back to the drawing board and kind of do the work again. So Genesis has been working in this area for like 30 years, and over that time we've learned an awful lot about how to apply software and technology to improve things like AHT. And to that end, by having the opportunity to kind of, if you will, recode our technology fresh, that effectively is what Pure Cloud is. And it's now like in its 5th year. But the beauty is that it's very, very easy. And that's one of the kind of key things I'd like you to sort of remember. So on the left, you can see, I don't care what kind of channel I'm working in. I should be able to apply AHT, if you like, improvement to whatever way my customer chooses to contact me. Browsing, co-browsing, messaging, phone calls, etc. To me, it's the same thing. If I can make improvements to AHT and calls, great. I should also be able to do improvements to handling times for emails as well. How can I think about doing that? Similarly, I don't mind, if you will, where these agents are, whether they're my own in-house colleagues, whether I've got some outsourced resources that I'm overflowing into. It really gives me that sort of easy flexibility and reach. But The two areas that I want to just go into a bit more detail on are performance, the sort of section on top. I was going to say quadrant, but it's kind of a triangle, so the kind of triangle to the top. I want to go into a bit more detail on, and similarly the triangle at the bottom, the integrations one, because those two for me, and bearing in mind I've got a technology bias, they're the two that really can bring the value of AHT to you very, very quickly, and that's kind of based upon my own real experience. So if we just drop into the performance section first. So, Paul talked about, how by analyzing the data that you get from your technology, you're able to kind of drill in and get the intricacies of AHT and start to focus on how to pull out those improvement benefits. So to that end, you would expect any, contact center capability to have that. Absolutely, we have that from the Genesis perspective, along with, like onboard, so not an additional or separate technology, the workforce management capability that Paul referred to. So by getting, AHT, if you like, correct and stable or structured, that actually feeds into the workforce management. So to that end, it kind of makes it run more effective, or rather optimally. That's probably the best way to do it. Similarly, we talked about, being able to take examples, if you like, of best practice. So, we call and we record everything basically on our technology. So whichever way your customer is choosing to connect with you or message with you, whether you choose to actually outbound contact that customer, we're recording it. And with those call or screen recordings, I'm able then to do quality assessment of those. And from those, I can start to pick out those use cases or those examples of success. And as we were kind of discussing earlier, if we can start to build a little library between teams or maybe competitively between groups within the operation, you can start to sort of say, well, look, here's a great example of how, Rachel was able to address this particular objection from the customer in this example, and kind of pull up a best performance or best, just nice examples, being able to sort of pull them in as real handling of a real objection. And I think that would be a nice way to utilize the recording and quality tools, along with, if you will, the known capability of improving coaching and that type of thing that you'd expect from those tools. So keep that in mind, because those sort of capabilities, if you will, are really the basics to help you enable and exploit improving or reducing AHT. Then the other side really is where we start to, if you like, leverage other information in my organization. So as a contact handling tool, I'm handling all different types of interactions, and that's really cool. But if I can, at each point, identify the customer and actually pull up that customer record and present it to the agent, is a very simple thing. We've been doing it for many, many years. But then guess what? We look at the survey that we did just a moment ago, and across 200 users, there's very, very little utilization of screen pop. But if I can see an incoming call and I can do a database lookup, I can then actually present the call and the screen to the agent at the same time. And just that in itself will easily reduce many seconds of an interaction. So from that perspective, absolutely, I've been in this area quite a long time. In the earlier days, that was quite a difficult thing to do. It was quite a costly thing to do, both from the customer information systems and then also from the contact system. So making that integration was actually a kind of a bespoke piece of work, and often it became difficult to kind of look after and manage and keep updated and that type of thing. So it kind of discouraged people from using it. But the point I'm making is that today, that sort of bringing two information systems together has really become very, very easy. And you'll find that things like built-in apps and like journey mapping, sort of like off-the-shelf tools into things like Salesforce, if you are running that type of application, or Zendesk, these things are now like plugins. So the kind of notion that we can't actually bring the benefits of having my customer information along with the contact handling platform working really closely together, that really should be what we're driving for. And I would like to see things like ID and V and screen pop use case examples being much more up into the 60%, 70% versus what we saw earlier, about 20 or 30%, which is disappointing really. But what I would say is, it is easy, and let me show you an example. So here's my personal sort of in-office screen for Pure Cloud. You can kind of get a sense of my sort of desktop, and I'm not going to go into detail, but just look at the blue ribbon at the top and the blue ribbon on the left. So if I kind of look at an example where myself and my colleague Steve were working with a customer who was very interested in our technology, but they were also very interested in a CRM platform called Gemstone. who we had never met before. But these guys, we don't have a plugin to that technology, but they came along to the demo with the customer. So we had Genesis, the customer, and Gemstone. And we were kind of going through the capability and kind of comparing notes. And in that demo, okay, so before we actually finished that demo, we had created what you can see in front of you. So we were able to kind of embed, if you will, the Gemstone capability within the Pure Cloud screen. So you can again see the ribbon on the top, the blue ribbon on the left, and you can see the third-party Gemstone application just sitting in there. So the point I'm making is this could be anything. It doesn't have to be Gemstone. It could be any information application. And the nice thing was, it's not just a case, if you will, of embedding and presenting data, but actually we can use that integration. So here we have a situation where we were able to bring in an example of an incoming call from Mason Water. We did a lookup into Gemstone, we found a comparative number, and we did the screen pop. Okay, so literally, and I'm not, trying to make it like overstated, shall we say, we showed this to the customer together before we finished the demo. It was like a 2-hour session. So, think about those screen pop tools, revisit those. I was disappointed to see the lack of take-up of those in the earlier poll. So I think, come on, everybody, have a look at those again, because in the modern sort of capability or the modern technologies, it's really, really easy to do these things. And the improvement on AHT will be substantial. And I would say 20 seconds is conservative. If you were to combine screen pop and IDV, I would easily say you're getting more like, 20, 30, 40 seconds. You could easily start to improve quite a lot around AHT. Okay, so I hope that was kind of helpful. And to me, if you will, these are the bringing the basics to life. So there's nothing to me here which is particularly challenging. It should be pretty straightforward. What I also want to do, though, and I mentioned at the start about, I'd like to kind of introduce some of the thinking that we're doing as Genesis as we kind of look forward. And we know through market research and listening to our customers, the movement, if you like, of customer behavior from voice to digital. That's well understood now. But if you will, in handling those volumes of digital interactions, it's also becoming quite a challenge. And to that end, what we're bringing to market and what we have use cases that are active within our customers is this notion of blending some AI functionality, so artificial intelligence, and some automation, but if you like, delivering that hand in hand with the agent. And that becomes very, very effective because it's kind of both are kind of working together. It's not either or. And what we found, if you will, from customers who've started, if you will, on automation or robotics or bots, that type of thing, often they've been disappointed. And we feel it's because they've tried to go too much through technology only. And if they had the kind of combination or blended AI, we call it, where you're leveraging some of that capability, but also smartly for an agent, then we feel that's actually got a bit of better traction. And by doing that, we're seeing a nice improvement around AHT, which is quite nice. It's a nice return. The second one you can see there is the notion of predictive routing. So again, here, if you will, we're remembering what we've done with this customer before. We're remembering our relationship that we've had with this customer. And again, I don't care whether it's a digital interaction or a voice interaction. But based upon the presentation of a new interaction, I'm doing my lookup, I'm doing my predictive routing, and it might be deciding, actually, I'm an insurance company, I'm a claims clerk, and on the basis of the predictive routing, it knows that Mike was dealing with my claim last. And therefore, I'd rather connect the customer to Mike, because Mike knows, and Mike can be in step with the customer quicker than giving it to a different agent who knows nothing about Mike's case. And from that scenario, we see that's a nice way to, if you will, enhance and improve that AHT. Depending upon your offering to your customer, you may have account managers, people who own customers. Again, predictive routing will find their named individual contact. If that person is not available, they can choose to leave a message if they would rather speak to the agent in question, or they could go to their number 2, which could be defined in predictive routing. So again, it's a nice improvement, and we're seeing some nice success stories there, especially around AHT improvement. And the last one, the third one then, is the idea of omni-channel. So we've been talking multi-channel, omni-channel, Rachel, for several years. Yeah. Like I said before, we have to really stop, if you like, behaving differently. It's a customer interaction. So regardless of how the customer has chosen to contact you, you have to respect and respond, I believe, identically. And to that end, if I have got a way to improve AHT on one media, there's no reason or shame on me if I can't express an improvement through a different media. And that's kind of, to me, the challenge we should be thinking about and working with. And from the Genesis perspective, that's kind of the thing that we're working on, and we're trying to bring value to our customers through that way. So that's hopefully kind of giving you some insights. A nice use case example is this one here, which we announced last year. We did a launch at the Google event in San Francisco, which was, we were thrilled to be invited to actually be at that launch. And from that perspective, it was quite a big deal in that community. But the beauty of this example really is where using Google's contact center AI, we're listening to the conversation in real time. We're able to observe and assess what the customer is looking for. And then based upon that information, we're able to prompt, if you like, to the agent, the best, if you like, route to resolve. And that's proven to be quite an interesting improvement around AHT, especially if I have a complex environment where my customer information might be, I might need to source information about the customer from different tools, different systems. The actual technology can kind of go and capture that information and kind of bring that quickly to the agent's attention. And then from that, if you will, help move the conversation much quickly forward. And obviously, helps on AHT, but terrific benefits as far as customer experience is concerned. So again, Agent Assist is another one to kind of look out for and expect some nice things from an improvement perspective going forward. So then I think the last sort of point I wanted to make really was just that we have obviously a very broad international audience here, but from the perspective, if you will, of what our customers are up to, remember that they all have their smartphones. They have access to multiple vehicles for getting access to organizations, and they will find them out. They will search them out, and they will use them to reach out to you. So be sort of like smart and, if you like, in sync internally about how you're offering options to your customer. But you can see from the stats here, 97% of customers globally are multi-channel users using up to 6 channels on average. Okay, so all the different messaging options, emails, chats, calls, etc. 81% of consumers are willing to pay more for a better service. Okay, so think about that as well, especially when you think about automation, which there's going to be lots and lots of wonderful things coming there that makes it a nice experience. But also, absolutely, I will actually choose to engage with somebody. I'm okay. So like, it's important to me. I want to get it resolved. Therefore, will I pay for it? Maybe. It's worth thinking about. And then also the last one, 51% of consumers have switched. Okay, so remember, if you don't step up, other people will. And from that perspective, poor customer service will drive people to kind of go, maybe it's time I kind of move from this brand. So just sort of keep those, if you like, sage points, if you like, in mind, because these sort of like challenges about always improving AHT, to me, these are the things we've got to be careful of. I always feel that we should be a little bit paranoid as we kind of do our daily task about, what can I do to make things better, to make sure I'm actually thinking on my customer's behalf, and what can I do to kind of make that overall experience better by perhaps improving that AHT where I can. So on that, Rachel, I think that brings me to my end. I hope that was helpful, and I look forward to more tips from the forum.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. We've actually got a quick poll to ask, would you like to see a demonstration of the Genesis solution? So, Mike's obviously wanting to show his screen pop technology and everything else. So, please vote on that now. Mike, we've actually just had a question in the chat room while this is happening. Yep. Does Genesis also offer this tool on-premise or only cloud-based?
No. So, like I showed you at the very, very start, we have 3 offerings. The one that I showed you was pure cloud, so that is a pure cloud only. That's a cloud only technology. But our pure Engage or our pure Connect are also premise options. So from that perspective, happy the same benefits that we talked about can be achieved from either of those platforms. So premise options are very much available.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much. There we go.
I was surprised by the poll to invite a demo, Rachel. That's new on me. So.
Oh, okay.
I'm interested in feedback.
So Brianne's asked a question saying, our screen pop requires the customer to input information for the pop to happen. Is this the case for everyone? If so, what can you do to increase adoption in your customer base? Mike, I'm guessing this one's for you.
Yeah, well, certainly. So inputting information is helpful. It doesn't have to be. So if I can find, if you want, I suppose it's the safest, because the customer has to deliberately sort of like type in a case number or account number, that type of thing. Other examples might be just based upon the customer's mobile number. So, if I can see that mobile number and I recognize it as Mike, do I actually need to offer them the option to enter their account number? Maybe not. If they're a regular caller and I do see that CLI, I could decide for this case, just bypass the IVR and let it go straight to a screen pop and present that way. It might be a case that if it's a VIP customer, perhaps I might want to give them a specific number to call. Again, in that scenario, I could recognize that this VIP customer is coming through, therefore there's no IVR, just straight to a screen pop, straight into the contact center. So a variety of ways that we can affect that.
Brilliant. So we've had a tip in from Paul, who said if an issue is going to take longer than around 3 minutes, we'll recommend the agent call the customer back at a convenient time, preventing customer frustration and takes the stress off the agent, resulting in a quicker resolution time. Paul, what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, that sounds like a classic tier 1, tier 2 type service scenario, that you want your frontline agents to be able to deal with the sort of the 80-20 rule. The vast majority of those inquiries that are achievable within a certain envelope. Those things that are more complex, then yes, you either transfer them off to a second line support area because you need a different skill set, or if in this example you make some other arrangement to kind of contact the customer. The only thing to bear in mind, Paul, is that if you are going to make an agreement that an agent calls a customer back, you have to be 99% certain that it actually happens. So I think some of Mike's technology might be useful to make sure that those callbacks do actually get scheduled. There are certainly some very clever ways that you can do that when you've got a lower inbound demand, that actually some agents get taken effectively almost automatically off the inbound queue, and they're then made available to make outbound calls. So if you're going to do that, then be 100% certain that you're able to keep those customer promises.
Okay, thank you. So Wendy said, we've looked at changing procedures to make it easier / quicker for advisors to deal with those simple queries that can be numerous and time consuming. Paul again has said we've introduced a person.
I was busy typing, wasn't I?
Yeah. You're trying to win that champagne.
No.
We've introduced a personal code which allows agents a minute or two to gather themselves after a difficult call or grab a drink. We've found this decreases wrap time as agents are stretching this time for a rest. Paul, I think that's a great one and something we've definitely written a lot about.
Yeah, it is. Again, going back to my airline example, in the kind of darkest times when the call queues were very, very long, we found that wrap time used to behaviourally go up, and that was just because it was call after call after call, and agents just naturally wanted to have a break, and they used to cheat and have an extra 5 or 10 seconds. That's just life. It's if you've got a way of them being able to make that an okay thing to do with the personal code as an example, then it becomes very easy to kind of manage it so that it's being as appropriately used. So good idea.
Mike, what you were agreeing?
Yep, I was.
Technology wise.
I like to make sure nothing further to say, sorry.
So Angel's asked a question saying, how are you able to track and quantify AHT improvements? We have concerns about not being able to quantify return on investment, as there are so many factors that can impact AHT. Has anyone successfully tried tying changes back to specific improvements at the organisational level? Paul, I don't know, is this one for you?
So I guess what the caller here is, also what the contributor is asking is how do you get kind of buy-in to making these changes? And assuming it's a she, Angel's absolutely correct that it is something that it might be difficult to tie cause and effect down. And that's why you need to be very clear around what the root causes are that you are addressing, and then have different ways of measuring it, whether it's an impact on CSAT as well as the impact on sort of AHT.
Thank you very much. And unfortunately, we've reached the top of the hour. So we just want to ask in 1 or 2 words, what did you like best about the webinar? If you could write that in. Today's winning tip, congratulations to Amber, who said, I've seen that companies more focused on employee satisfaction engagement, with some companies striving to be a great place to work. AHT is lower because employees are focused on one goal, the customer, and not necessarily their individual staff. It eliminates situations where calls are rushed and reduces multiple callbacks. Brilliant. We'll get in touch with you after the webinar. Just a reminder to complete the survey when you leave the webinar. There is a replay. It will be available in about an hour's time. And we are back next week with the best ways to design quality scorecards. I'd just like to say thank you very much to our 2 brilliant speakers today. To Paul Wheels, thank you.
Thank you very much. Sure, yeah.
And to Mike Murphy, thank you as well.
Thanks, Rachel. Thank you, Paul, and thanks everybody. And I really appreciate your input with the tips and the scores.
Fab. And so goodbye from me. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.